Thank you all for showing up tonight. This is a meeting of the South Park Coalition, and we are a group of neighbors working together to try to make South Park a safer, cleaner, and friendlier neighborhood for everyone who lives here. And we've had some great successes. We do neighborhood cleanups. We do events for kids. We do cookies and cocoa. We do, can't even remember all the things we do because it's quite extensive. But tonight we are here to welcome Eddie Engram, who is running for the sheriff of Sonoma County. He is currently the assistant sheriff. And I'm going to read a little bit of background on him, and then we will let him speak and introduce himself, and then we'll ask some questions. Eddie grew up in a tough neighborhood in East Palo Alto, and most of his male relatives ended up in trouble with the law. Seeing this, his mom moved the family away for better opportunities. Eddie and his brother were the only ones who didn't spend time in jail, and Eddie's the only one who graduated from college in his family. He's the only candidate who has been personally affected by police action. He knows firsthand the ramifications, both positive and negative, of the current law enforcement system. Eddie began his life in public service in 2000 as a correctional officer at the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. In 2002, he joined the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. Over the years, he served as domestic violence sexual assault detective, explorer advisor, internal affairs investigator, hostage negotiation team member, use of force instructor, and field training officer. As watch commander, he managed the crisis intervention training team. He then headed up the Professional Standards Bureau, which included internal affairs and the Field Services Division, covering the Patrol Bureau, dispatch, court security, fire assistance, and liaison to the Independent Office of Law Enforcement Review and Outreach. These experiences lead him to the number 2 spot as assistant sheriff, where his role expanded to manage the detention division and all detention-related services, including a $70 million annual budget. Assistant Sheriff Engram is a recipient of the Sheriff's Office Distinguished Service Award and a Gold Medal of Valor. He holds a bachelor degree in criminal justice management and lives with his family in Santa Rosa. Eddie has seen the good influence that the rule of law can have on the community. He understands the need for experienced public servants to keep the community safe from crime and natural disasters. He knows there are some things that need to change. He will strive for openness and transparency to build much-needed relationship of trust. Under his leadership, the Sheriff's Office will be focused on community-oriented policing and a proactive approach to crime reduction to serve all Sonoma County residents. And with that, I would like to welcome Eddie Engram.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you for having me.
So do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing, and then we will go into some questions?
Okay, I just didn't know the format that you were going with. So as Annette said, I've been with the Sheriff's Office for approximately 20 years. And I'm running for sheriff because I really want to improve on the things that we do well, disaster management being one of those things, but I also see that there are some things that we need to improve. So my focus will be on public safety, improving our detention services, embracing constructive oversight, supporting community-based policing and engagement, and improve our hiring practice to have a more diverse working environment. I really come from a family of service, and Lynette talked a little bit about my family, but from those dark times come better things. My father was an addict. However, he recovered from homelessness and addiction, and went on to work in a career for county government in Florida, and now he is retired and he writes children's books. My mother, who worked 2 jobs to support me and my brother, she went on to get a master's of nursing and is now an adjunct professor at a community college. And she also works in community healthcare, specializing in communities that are facing disparities and inequities. Additionally, I also volunteer my time with Verity, helping those survivors from sexual and physical abuse. I'm on the board of Verity as their treasurer. So I really come from a family of service. I've been involved in service my entire life, and I want to continue the service to the people of Sonoma County.
Wonderful. What's your favorite thing about being a sheriff or a deputy, assistant sheriff, pardon me?
I think I enjoy the job that I have now, but I think my most rewarding job was the 2 stints I did in the domestic violence sexual assault unit. I worked there from 2006 to 2009, and again in 2013 and 14 before I was promoted to sergeant. During that time, I met some really wonderful people in terrible situations, and I really had a pretty good feeling when I was able to solve those cases and help bring some closure to some of those victims of domestic violence or sexual assault.
Nice. Can you tell us, what does the sheriff do?
The sheriff has a wide array of things that they are responsible for. Primarily what people see are the law enforcement and detention services. So the sheriff is in charge of the jail. We have 2 jails in Sonoma County, our main adult detention facility and our North County facility. The sheriff also is responsible for law enforcement patrol in the unincorporated areas of the county. We also operate 2 contracts with the town of Windsor and the city of Sonoma. The sheriff is also the sheriff coroner, which means they are in charge of the coroner's office. The sheriff or his deputies, they do not do the medical examinations. That's something that's done by forensic personnel, but they do manage the coroner's bureau. The sheriff is also responsible by law for maintaining a search and rescue team. We also have a Marine unit, and we have a helicopter unit as well. So there are a lot of things that the sheriff is in charge of throughout the county. Civil service paperwork, so serving restraining orders, evictions, any type of civil paperwork, that is also the responsibility of the sheriff, as well as maintaining the courts.
Yeah, all in a day's work, huh? Wow. What's the difference between the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office and Santa Rosa PD?
The sheriff's office first is the sheriff is an elected position. The chief of police, for example, the city of Santa Rosa, that is an appointed position, appointed by the city manager and approved by the city council. So the chief reports to the city manager and the city council, where the sheriff reports directly to the people of Sonoma County. The sheriff, in all those duties that I explained to you before, those are strictly duties for the sheriff, most of them. Police departments patrol incorporated cities such as the city of Santa Rosa. However, they are not responsible for coroner services, maintaining a search and rescue team, civil paperwork. Those are all the purview of the sheriff. So that is a little bit of the difference between them. There are a lot of things that we do the same, such as patrol, but detention and some of those other services are performed only by the sheriff.
Thank you. How would you improve relations between the sheriff's office and members of the BIPOC community?
So we've actually been working on that, and I've been pretty instrumental in doing that at the sheriff's office. We've created a community roundtable called CREED, Community Roundtable for Equity, Engagement, and Diversity. There are 18 members of that group that represent large swaths of Sonoma County. So members of the BIPOC community, members from the Sonoma Valley, northern parts of the county, the western parts of the county. So it's really a group that that works with the sheriff's office and bringing the community's concerns to us. Additionally, as sheriff, I pledged to be in the community as well, attending community meetings, not just meetings that we are invited to, but meetings that we know of and attend. Historically, what's happened with the sheriff's office and engagement with the community is maybe we put on an event or we come to events that we are invited to, and the individuals that do come to those meetings are usually people who are not the decision makers within the office. So no lieutenants or captains or assistant sheriffs or even the sheriff. As sheriff, I would make sure that the people who attend these meetings are decision makers or have the ability to filter the concerns of the people of Sonoma County up to me as sheriff, to where we can address those concerns and work better with the community.
Thank you. The Sonoma County Sheriff's Office has been accused of racism, not only against communities of color, but also within its ranks. Do you feel you would have the necessary support within the department to make needed changes?
Yes, I do. I have the support of the members of the Deputy Sheriff's Association and as well as Sonoma County Law Enforcement, which are the union within the jail. So I have wide support within the agency. Most of the people that work within our organization are good people, and they don't put up with racism or divisive attitudes either. Everyone a lot of people within the office would like to make change, and I do believe that I would have the support within the organization to make those changes and ensure that we are not a divisive or racist organization.
Okay, I got a couple of tough questions. Some of our neighbors have concerns over the recent excessive and wrongful death lawsuits and the amount of money that it has cost our county. Can you share with us your perspective on how these cases have been handled?
Well, I would say that I have a concern, and I think that everyone within our office should have a concern when it comes to the appearance of excessive force, irregardless of the lawsuits. Law enforcement is one of those businesses where you will be sued. It is just a matter of fact, it's something that will happen. However, what I'm concerned with is the belief of those in the community that we engage in excessive force. So that is something that I am really concerned with. We have implemented de-escalation training. We have a new de-escalation training program that we'll be implementing in the next couple of months. We train quarterly on de-escalation, and I really think that that's the thing that is necessary to reduce those claims of excessive force and the payouts that come from the county. But I am concerned about those, and I think that we all are concerned about them internally.
We've seen examples of deputies using excessive force. What steps would you take to stop this behavior, and how would you address it with officers involved?
So you begin with the expectation, and the expectation is that excessive force is not tolerated. And when we do have instances of excessive force, to make sure that those individuals are disciplined appropriately. I've heard other people say that as sheriff, you have to make the difficult decision to discipline those who use excessive force or violate policy. I don't believe that those decisions are difficult. As a leader, that is something that needs to be done. That's something that you should be prepared to do. And I don't find it to be a difficult decision to discipline someone who violates our policies and maybe in some cases may violate the law. In order to prevent that, you need to make the expectation known that it will not be tolerated. Follow through on discipline for those who violate our policy, whether that be suspensions or even in some cases termination, but it needs to be known that it is not accepted. Additionally, training, again, that's where it really comes back to is the de-escalation training to make sure that we don't get into those situations. Some situations are unavoidable. Sometimes deputies are placed in situations where they have to use force, but when they are placed in those situations, what needs to be known is that you use the force that is necessary to stop the threat, and that is where force ends. And that is the tone that I would set within the sheriff's office, and that would be my expectation.
Thank you. There have been accusations that the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office corrections guards engaged in yard counseling, a practice where inmates are beaten by multiple guards for rules violations. Why was this allowed to happen, and what have you done to correct it?
Yard counseling was a practice that was used. However, yard counseling now is a violation of policy. That has been the corrective action. So if yard counseling is done within our correctional facility, that is something to where that employee would be disciplined for yard counseling. And yard counseling essentially is when you remove an individual from their cell and take them to anywhere other than another cell for a cooling off period, and you engage in some sort of disciplinary action. That is a violation of our policy, and any violation of that policy is subject to discipline.
Thank you. Santa Rosa PD has a policy that if an officer sees another one engaging in excessive behavior or not, if they don't turn that officer in, they are also liable for the same not punishment, but reprimand as the one who actually did the crime or did the excessive force. Is there something similar like that in the sheriff's office?
Yes, so not only is that deputy also responsible for the person who commits that act of violating our excessive force policy, they're also required by our policy to intercede. So if a deputy witnesses another deputy engaging in acts that would violate our use of force policy, it is the requirement by our policy for that deputy to intercede. And if they do not, that is a violation of policy as well.
Thank you. It seems from a consumer's perspective that there is not a lot of not a lot happens to officers or deputies that do excessive force. That's the perception. Can you speak to that?
So historically, discipline handed down to deputies for violations of a myriad of policies was something that was kept private by law in that peace officer's file. So for example, you can see a deputy engage in excessive force, and depending on that level of excessive force, that employee may not have been terminated, but they may have received the maximum suspension of 6 months or so. But the average public would never see that. However, based on current law that was passed a few years ago and amendments that were made in the last legislative session, for some specified violations of policy, those things do become public and are available to the public under Senate Bill 1421. So if someone engages in excessive force, sexual misconduct, use of force involving a firearm, those sorts of cases, those now become public, where in the past they haven't been. So I can understand the average community member's concern that discipline was not occurring. Discipline has been occurring, it just hasn't been in the public light. And based on these certain cases, now that information is in the public for the public to view.
And how will you go about repairing trust with the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office?
Again, I think it goes back to that engagement piece with our community roundtable, the commitment from the Sheriff's Office to be in the community. And I think that it also goes to transparency and what people see within the Sheriff's Office and how we police ourselves with some of the things that I mentioned in SB 1421. I think when people see that things are actually occurring and people are actually being disciplined for improper behavior and our engagement with the community, that I think that those things will go a long way to build the bridges and repair some of the damage between the Sheriff's Office and the members of our community.
And what are you most proud of in your service at Sonoma County Sheriff's Office?
There's quite a few things. I am, and I guess there's a little bit of recency bias. I'm really proud of the job that we've done in the main adult detention facility for almost 2 years in managing the COVID-19 pandemic. It's been really difficult. The employees, not only the correctional deputies, but the medical staff, the janitorial staff, everyone has really worked long hours and worked really hard to make sure that the inmates within our facility are safe. And I'm proud to be a part of that team. We've done better than most detention facilities throughout the state, and in fact, throughout the country in managing COVID. We've only had 3 major outbreaks within our facilities. We've had no hospitalizations of inmates, and we've had no deaths in regards to our inmates. So I'm really proud of the job that the team and the detention division has done. I'm also proud of the job that I did as captain during the Kincaid fire. That was, we were bit by fire not more than 2 years after Tubbs and Nuns. And at that time, I was a captain during Kincaid. And during that period of time, on a daily basis, I was supervising over 200 officers and deputies from outside of our agency. So I'm really proud at the job that we did there, keeping the citizens of Sonoma County safe and also protecting their homes when they were evacuated. So those are 2 of the biggest things that I'm proud of in the job that I've done at the Sheriff's Office.
And what would you like to see for the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office in the next 10 years?
So primarily, I'd like to see a repairing of the relationships that we've had. Sort of going through this campaign and talking to different people. I had a community member ask me if I had a magic wand and on day one as sheriff, what would one thing that I would do? And that one thing, my answer would be to repair all the relationships within the community for the sheriff's office, whether it be with community members, members of the board, just sort of all around all the community, because I believe that when you have good relationships, then you can get down to solving the real problems that affect us all, whether that be homelessness or inequality. So that is really what I would like to see. I would also like to see a more diverse sheriff's office. My entire time working in the sheriff's office on the law enforcement side, there have never been more than 5 African-American deputy sheriffs my entire 20 career at the sheriff's office. Mind you, on the patrol side, and that's the law enforcement side, that is about 224 employees.
Wow.
But keep in mind the population of Sonoma County, we hit just about that number, but I don't think that we should try to hit a statistical number and just stay there. I think that the office should be more diverse, because I think diversity brings a lot of things. It brings diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, and different ways to do the job. And when you have a diverse workforce, you find that there are more than one ways to do the job and do it better for the community. So that's what I really would like to see within the sheriff's office.
Great. I would like to ask Olivia if she has any questions that came up in chat.
No, there are no questions in chat.
Wow, that's surprising. Okay. I guess then if there is anything else you would like to add, Eddie? What am I?
No other questions, huh?
That's very surprised.
You answered them all.
Actually, I do have one more. How would you work with IOLERO?
Yeah, so that's a question that I get a lot as well. And I think that there are some people who think that the relationship between IOLERO and the sheriff's office should be adversarial. I'm not one of those people. I think that it should really be a cooperative relationship. And I think that IOLERO and the sheriff's office and the community as a whole have the same goal, is for the sheriff's office to be responsive to the community, to ensure that we are doing our job in an equitable manner when we are dealing with members of the community. And another part of IOLERO's job is looking at our policies and seeing if there is a way that we can do our job better. And I think that is really important to have outside eyes to see if there are things that we can do better. I may not always agree with IOLERO's reasoning on a different subject, on one subject or another, but I think that those conversations should be had in order to explain either why I agree with a policy recommendation or why I don't agree with the policy recommendation. So I think that it really should be cooperative. And since we're on the topic of IOLERO, the question that I get also is about Measure P and the implementation of Measure P. So Measure P was passed by an overwhelming number of people within the county, and I think that that's an important statement. And that being the case, there are several things in Measure P, and the bulk of the things in Measure P I think are positive and will make for a better sheriff's office. And those things that are able to be implemented now, I think should be implemented, and I would work to implement those things. There are some things that are in the court process, and that mostly has to do between the employee bargaining group and the county and the meet and confer process. That's something that's outside of the sheriff's control. And when those things are litigated and dealt with, then those things that are found to be legal, I would implement those as well.
Okay, we've had a few questions come up. Did you see those, Olivia?
I did. So there's one question. What is the sheriff's role regarding in regards to fire emergencies?
So in large-scale emergencies, the responsibility then falls to the sheriff for emergency response. So with that is the coordinating of law enforcement groups within the county, and sometimes calling for mutual aid from outside the county. And all those individuals that then report to the county to provide mutual aid services report to the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office they basically become sheriff's office employees, sort of, for lack of a better term, for the period that they are responding. The sheriff also is responsible for declaring an emergency and evacuations. Only the sheriff can order that. And they work with the fire agencies to decide which areas should be evacuated and what the plan is for fire emergencies. So that's the job of the sheriff, not only during fires, but during other emergencies as well, such as floods.
Okay, there's another question. What would you do to make sure that something like the Andy Lopez killing did not happen again?
So several things have happened since 2013 that I think that it makes it less likely for that to occur. There have been policy changes, there have been changes in the law in regards to use of force, and there have been changes in regards to our training and our de-escalation training and how we deal with situations. So several things have changed since then. We're not the same agency with the same policies that we were in 2013. Many things have changed in regards to the way we use force.
And the next question is, how do you feel the sheriff's office should deal with the issue of people experiencing homelessness?
Homelessness is a very difficult decision. There's been several lawsuits and several laws in regards to dealing with the homeless. After Joe Verdota Trail, we learned a lot of lessons as a county about how to deal with homelessness, and some of those lessons are working with nonprofit groups, working with county behavioral health, looking for places to house people. And I think that you see not only throughout the county, but through the state with Project Home Key from Governor Gavin Newsom, and the purchasing of different hotels and things of that nature throughout the county, that we're really taking a holistic approach to dealing with homelessness. Part of homelessness, I think, which needs to be looked at and realized, is that not only is there a homelessness issue, there's also an issue that has to deal with mental health and addiction. For my part, in the jail, I instituted a medical assisted treatment program to assist those with opioid addiction. So when they come into our facility, they can work through the detox process and work through counseling and medication to help them with opioid addiction. And then we, as they transition out of custody, we connect them with service providers, doctors, and counselors to continue that program as they move out of custody. So homelessness is a multifaceted issue. There needs to be several stakeholders involved. Many of you may know that there is a large gap in our behavioral health system here in Sonoma County. So there really has to be a whole person approach to dealing with homelessness, with mental health, addiction services, as well as housing.
Thank you. Is there anything else, Olivia?
All the questions in chat. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Eddie, do you have any final words you would like to say?
Well, I really appreciate you having me. If you have any other questions, you can reach me on my website, Engram4Sheriff.com. There is a link there where you can send me some messages. You can also reach me on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and send me questions there. I'd be more than happy to answer any of the questions that you have. So I really appreciate your time. I think that when you look at the landscape of the race and you look at the different people who have come to speak with you, if you take my lived experience and my professional experience into account, you'll see that I am a really great candidate to be the next sheriff of Sonoma County.
Thank you. I would also like to just mention that Eddie took the time to answer the questions that came up from the first round of interviews or meetings that we had with the other candidates. All of those answers have been posted on the South Park Facebook page. And then we will also post a recording of this meeting on the South Park Facebook page if you have other people who would like to see it. So I'd like to thank you, Eddie, for taking the time to meet with us and share your point of view. And thank you for being here.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.